So the way I want to format these for the future is to start off with a new technique that I have learned or I'm trying to learn, would be the better way to put it. Explain what that technique is and then record a game where I use that technique. So in this case, it's the hidden single line technique. And I'm going to read the description, and hopefully that will make it seem like I understand what I'm talking about. So, the hidden single line. The same way a digit is squeezed into a certain cell within a box, it's also squeezed into a certain cell within a row or column. Just like with boxes, each and every row or column needs to have all the digits from 1 to 9. That's Sudoku. So the center row 100% needs a 5. Now, if I have this new information, I can tell that only one of the missing digits in this line can be a 5. Pinpoint accuracy. Place it right in the center, next to the 4. And this is the same thing, but in a column format, as opposed to a row. Now, the thing to remember is that searching for hidden singles and lines is sometimes necessary. There's no question about it. But generally, it is not as efficient as looking at boxes because of one reason. The intersection of a line with a line is always just one cell, whereas the intersection of a box with a line is always 3 cells. So you can rule out cells much quicker when concentrating on boxes. And that's why it's best to look at boxes first and lines second. Now, I hope it sounded like I knew what I was talking about, because that last part kind of threw me for a loop there. But I get the basic idea, and I'm hoping that now you also do. So, example. Let me try and explain this as best I can. Looking at this column, there are 3 empty cells. The 5th spot, the 8th spot, and the 9th spot. Now, the only numbers that can be in those empty cells are a 1, a 6, and a 5. So how do we solve any of this with just the information on this board? Well, in the 7th box, there is a 5. So the last 2 empty cells in this column cannot be a 5, because a 5 is already in that box, which means the last missing cell has to be a 5. Reducing the numbers that these two could be to a 1 and a 6. Oh, okay. I get it. Finish the following levels. Okay, yeah. With that example, I think I understand the last part of the hidden single line description. Okay, I will now try and solve one. Okay, let's see how this goes. What I always like to do is go through the numbers 1 through 9. Just easier to do my rotations that way. So there are only 2 ones currently in this box. Sorry, on this board. This one, which I don't think tells me a whole lot on its own, and the second one here, which, yeah, tells me that one of these 2 cells could be a 1, and that might be all the information that tells me. There are double the number of 2s than 1s. So does that triangulate anything? I think so, at a brief glance. These 3 cells cannot be a 2. Additionally, these 4 cells cannot be a 2. So I think that has to be 1. Now, based on that, I know that these 5 cells cannot be a 2. So one of the last 2 cells have to be a 2. And that is, I think, all the 2s. Right? One of those 2 can be a 2. And that might be all the info I get. Moving on to 3s. 1, 2. So one of these 2 cells have to be a 3. This 3 is coming across 3. I don't usually annotate when there are 3 cells. Somebody said that once. And then, I just did doubles. And I tried, just for the heck of it, to annotate when I thought there were 3 options, and it just got too complicated. There were far too many numbers on the board, and it legitimately confused me. So here, okay. Oh, there is a 3. Blocks off these 6, so the last one left is there, a 3. And now I think that's it. Moving on to 4s. And I'm keeping an eye on this line, because maybe it will be the first hidden single line to be solved, or to be used in a solve. 4s. I have 2 4s. They help me solve for the bottom right cell. And the bottom right cell helps me by not solving a whole lot else. Alright, 5s. One of these 2 numbers is a 5. And since I'm looking at these 3 blocks, 5's here, okay. In this box, all the vertical columns were taken, so a 5 could not be here, which meant a 5 had to be on one of these 2 cells. And using that as a line, as an arrow, cut off the potential of this cell being the 5. Therefore, the center cell in the first box is a 5. And I hope I got that right. Good. So just like this helps solve something, this will also help solve something. I just don't know what yet. Okay, that was the 5s. Was there any other? Yeah, here solves. Hidden single. That's also a 5. So one of these two is a 5. And that is also a 5. Got it. And then this is the 5 pair for the last 2 boxes. Moving on to the number 6. 3, so I'm not going to annotate. Also 3. 4. One of these two is a 6. One of these two is a 6. One of these 4 is a 6. I'll move on for now. 7. There's only one 7. Nice. And this one is solved. I'm just going to go through all the numbers first, so I don't lose track of where I am, which happens a fair amount. Alright, I'm seeing lines beginning to form. Here and here. And after this, I will be making a frozen pizza, because my stomach just started talking to me. Okay, so here solves, I don't know if it solves, but it helps. 8 is a line. 8 will be on this row. So an 8 has to be on the bottom row of this box. And because this 8 cuts off that central, bottom central square, that has to be an 8. One of these two, I mean. Okay. Anything else? No. So number 9. Are there any 9s? There is one. One of these two has to be a 9. One of these two has to be a 9. This has to be a 9, because these 3 cannot be. And then the last one is. One of these two is a 9. The 9 is on the bottom 3. And this one's close to being something. You know, if I knew this couldn't be a 9, then that would shoot an arrow through that one. Up like a balloon. So it would have to be here, which would be a cool solve. No doubt. My water bottle glows in the dark. I think it's the coolest thing ever. This 9 is here, which means this has to be a 9. So one of these two is a 9. Got it. And I'm glad I saw that before I said that this is a 1. That is also a 1. One of these 3 is a 1. So this one has to be a 9. Hidden single line solves for here. But let me just finish up the 9. 1, 2. Really cool. One of these two, right? Okay, so these are a pair. So what's missing? What number is missing from this row? 1, 2, 3, It's a 4. 4. But these two can be a 4. Did that help? Not a whole lot, but now I know what options I have here. 7 and 8. Oh right, I don't have a lot of 7s. I only have 1 7. Got it. What about 8s? Oh, that's cool. Anyway, one of these two is a 1. Not seeing a whole lot. 3s. Okay, cut off. One of these two has to be a 3. So top left is a 3. Which makes this pair one of the 3 and a 3 and an 8. Cool. And then that might be it. So a 3 will get solved sometime. I just don't know. 1, 2, potential 4, and one of these two. This one is so close. Am I stuck? No, that can't be. I know it's one of these 3 is an 8. Oh, here it is. One of these two has to be an 8. Arrows down. That's an 8. So this can only be a 3. Or something else. Well, that's good. I'm happy with that. Did that help for anything else? I don't know. Here. That's a line. I'm missing a 1 and a 7. 2 can't be here. It's one of these 2. Shoots an arrow, deletes. It's been 21 minutes. Wow, this is good stuff. So there's one more number. 1, 2, 4, 6. Okay, where could the 6 be? Not here. Not here. One of these two. Does that mean the 4 is solved? I think this is the 4. Yeah. What other number is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Got it. 4 and 7. Fantastic. So the other 7 has to be on this. Does that help me? No. Why did I think that out? I have no idea. 2 and a 6. Wow. I'm just saying random numbers now. Fantastic. Is this difficult? Okay, bear with me, because this is gonna probably sound insane. 7 cannot be here. But a 1 could be in either of these two. So this one has to be the 7. I'm shaking my head because I know I'm gonna watch that back and not understand how I knew that, but I knew that. And that's gonna irritate me. That I can't explain how I knew that. So I'm hoping as the Sudoku campaign continues, I learn whatever that was so I can describe it next time. I believe that's a 1. So this is just a 3 potential, correct? So 2 and a 6. If I could figure out where the 2 was, that'd be good. Did I solve anything else? Yes. No. This would either be a 4 or a 7. Which I think helps. No, 7's there, and a 4. So that's a 4. That's a 7. Now that I have that 7, does that solve for anything? I do not believe it does. Wow. No, it does, because that has to be a 7. Yes. I see it now. And then that has to be a 7. And then that has to be a 7. Just follow them like lines. Then one of these 2 has to be a 7. Good. I'm happy with this. Progress. Progress. Close. Is this an 8 now? That's why. Okay, 8. 8. 8. 8s are solved. Now it's going to be like dominoes, I hope. Did I start with the wrong one? No, maybe. 3. Which solves. One of these 2 is a 4. Oh, no, sorry. One of these 2 is a 4. One. I'm missing a 2 and a 6 here. But that can't. So that has to be the 6. One of these 2 is a 6. But that's a 2. Which means this is a 2. And this is a 6. This can't be a 2, so that has to be a 2. Which solves for the 3 here. Which solves for the 3 here. Which solves for the 9. Which solves for this 9. I think when I delete a number, it ends the string. But that was good. This is a 4, which means it can't be here. That has to be a 4. That has to be a 1. This also has to be a 1. But that has to be the 1, so this can't be the 1. It has to be 7. Which X's that out. Which I think solves for this 5. It does. Because, oh, it's the same thing as before. This can't be a 5, this cell. This cell cannot be a 5, it has to be here. Solves. 5s are done. Oh, and just like that. A whole bunch were solved. It has to be a 6. And these 2 is a 6. So I only have 4s, 6s, and 9s remaining. I think that is the triangulated Okay. 6 has to be here. I hit 9, I meant 6. Wow. In just a short 34 minutes and 40 seconds. Oh, that's fantastic. So that was what I've learned and what I'm learning all in one. Even though that was a long time. And I felt lost. It was still just fun working everything out. Now, I'm excited to actually watch that